I kind of saw this coming. American politics are definitely brain dead, and I don't think this was very very surprising at all. I've been expressing my frustration repeatedly on this channel for the way that people have been talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's a very very bizarre thing, and I see this, with a lot of folks in left-wing media. Either you have folks who, the only thing I'm really hearing is them suggesting that MTG had some kind of a come to Jesus moment, and she all of a sudden realizes that Trump is crazy and corrupt, as opposed to she's crazy and corrupt just like Trump, and they're kind of the same, and she's kind of a female Trump. But anyway, you have some who say that. But more common than that is a very bizarre thing that I've noticed, where you have left-wing channels that will bounce between, and it'd be in the same video, bounce between implying that Marjorie Taylor Greene had this moment where she finally realized about, and it's just so weird. What do you mean finally realized? It's like you have two gangbangers, and you're like, one of the other gangbangers finally realized that the other gangbanger is a gangbanger. Like, what do you like? What does that even? What is there for Marjorie Taylor Greene to finally realize? Like, she is the same type of person as Trump, a liar, a fraud. She's corrupt. She's insane. But anyway, they will bounce between saying that she finally realized, and then they mock her like, "Oh, you're so dumb. You were had, and you allowed Trump to fool you," or something. But then in that same video, they'll be like implying that she didn't have an awakening and she knew all along, and she's actually, being an opportunist. And it's just, I don't understand. Why is it so hard to be consistently grounded in reality, right? Consistently, this is a scam, she's a fraud, she's a liar, she's an opportunist. Like, why is it so hard for left-wing channels to consistently be grounded in the reality of this woman? Why is it that over and over again I keep hearing it slips out in the middle of their videos where they say stuff like, and Trump was doing this all along, and you didn't even realize this and that, and well, I'm glad you're coming to my position. Like, what? And now we have this AOC versus MTG thing, which is just evidence of what I've been warning about. You have someone like Ryan Grimm, supposed left-winger, defending MTG against AOC, who simply stated the truth about how much of a fraud that Marjorie Taylor Greene is. And I made a video talking about that. This is one of the sort of kryptonite for the left in America for some reason. Like, I'll give you the analogy I gave before. I could be the most disgusting, corrupt guy. I could have all the worst allies and associates and, just bad person, right? Ideologically, as a left-wing person, I could be just like the Antichrist to you. But all I have to do is get online and say, free Gaza, this is a genocide, or some other thing like, Medicare for all, everyone should have Medicare for all, whatever it is, like whatever the most popular slogans are. I can go out there and just aggressively echo that rhetoric. And somehow, this is like a cheat code that can isolate me from who I am and what I've done and what my track record is and what everybody knows about me to be true, right? I can take all that baggage and just somehow just sweep it under the carpet and just wear this mask. It's not even that complicated. Like, you have those masks with with the rubber band that goes around. It's just literally a plastic face and a rubber band goes on. I don't even need a full thing that's like fake skin and a suit thing and a muscle, whatever, right? I'm just wearing just a thin plastic mask with a rubber band, right? And what is that thin mask? Me saying there's a genocide in Gaza, Israel is doing it, and you guys know the rhetoric, right? Just literally anyone who aggressively pushes that stuff out, all sins are forgiven, all the other stuff will be overlooked. And I'm not even speaking theoretically. They're doing it with Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're doing it with Tucker Carlson, right? It's that easy. If you are a corrupt, lying fraud, if you are so pro billionaire, whatever it is, you can still seduce the left by just saying Gaza, it's a genocide, and housing should be a right, or Medicare for all, no question, whatever it is. This is not a debate. It's time for revolution, right? That's how dumb American politics are. So there is a comment. It's just so insane, man. The fact that I even have to have this conversation talking about this is just so stupid. This beyond just boggles my mind. I don't know what's in the water in this country, what they're teaching in schools. I mean, basic critical thinking is just absent. And it's not just that, though. You have this parasite class, which muddies the water. Like, they're a huge problem in this country. One of the big problems in this country is not the billionaires. It's not Donald Trump. It's not the Republican Party. It is the parasite class, these class of influencers who, anything for views, they are divorced from the reality that we live in, right? You're struggling to pay your bills. You're struggling because of healthcare. You're dealing with, AI taking your job and all this kind of stuff. And these people, they profit from the chaos, right? And it's not, that in itself is not an indictment of saying that they're evil people. Because even if you're a good person, if you're in this political media business, it is a fact that you profit from the chaos. The worse things get, the better your life is. That is a massive conflict of interest. So again, even if you are a good person with good intentions, that is extremely problematic that you benefit from America burning. The crazier stuff that Trump does, the more damage that the Republican Party does, or the bigger the failures of the Democrats. This is massive content gold. If we had someone that actually came into the office and successfully did this positive revolution, making this country really what it should be or what it's capable of being, like an amazing place, where we don't have all this dysfunction. If that person did that, a majority of these people in the political space would be in serious trouble. Who the hell is watching the Young Turks or Tim Pool or David Pakman or the Vanguard or whoever it is? Like, pretty much all these guys. The reason people are watching is because of all this chaos that's happening. They want, it's an emotional release. You're frustrated and you want to hear someone voice your frustration. Some people, they're afraid, or whatever the reason is, that they don't want to take action themselves, so they want to sort of cosplay. You get in the video, watching a video comment section, and you write your comments, and you all, this sucks and Trump is bad, and you feel like you're part of something. And then the YouTuber, they take advantage of this, right? I hear some of these YouTubers talking about subscribe so we can fight back. I'm like, how the hell are you fighting back? All you're doing is profiting from the chaos, right? If your content is not pushing people to do what needs to be done to resolve these issues, right? If you're not pushing for direct action, right? If you're not pushing for beyond just getting in the street and yelling a bunch of stuff, you know, instead of actually having an actual tactical plan of like, listen, these are the demands that we have. We're going to be loud about it. And these are the consequences of not meeting our demands. Like actually putting some meat on it, right? Um, if you're not pushing that out, then what are you really doing? You're doing entertainment content, right? And you're making more money the more things are dysfunctional. And this is a huge problem. So now, it's not just people that lack critical thinking or people that are just not politically savvy or whatever it is. You also have a lot of noise coming from these parasite class people who are playing games, right? People who know how bad AOC is and will pretend otherwise. Then they'll the little games of like, there's people supporting AOC and AOC is not left enough, as far as an angle to make money, right? So I'm gonna make a video and say, oh, AOC did this and AOC did that and whatever, because that's something that there's an audience for, people who don't like AOC. Um, I mean, I'm not particularly impressed with AOC. I'm not a big fan of AOC, right? But I find the idea of comparing AOC to MTG to be preposterous. I think the idea of being bothered that AOC said the truth about MTG is absolutely ridiculous. A guy who has looked at her mainly as an influencer, certainly much better than, a lot of the other people we have in politics today, but I look at her as she has so much potential to do so much more than what she does and what she chooses to do. Now, I don't know her, I don't know what her thoughts are, but like I said, I'm just not impressed with her, right? But I'm not a child, right? So I'm not gonna have this like AOC derangement syndrome where it's kind of like, I'm so focused on my hatred of her that I'm gonna go and defend a corrupt, just like absolute, complete trash like MTG over AOC. Especially when all AOC did is state the truth. Someone brought up a very valid point that further illustrates how bad things are. Um, Kamala Harris, or Kamala Harris if you're a dummy. Um, she campaigned with Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney was actually very conservative, and I believe, wasn't she very supportive of Trump on a lot of things? I think she was. I think she was. But either way, she was a very problematic politician. But what she did was honorable in the way that she went against her own party, ruined her political career. Again, not really someone I'd like to be allies with, and a hugely problematic politician. But honorable what she did in standing up against her own party. But now we have these brain dead people who would like to pretend like what MTG did is the same thing as what Liz Cheney did in any way at all whatsoever. I mean, I don't know that Liz Cheney, I think Liz Cheney had bad politics. I don't know about her doing fraud and lying and putting out a bunch of crazy stuff online and harassing people and putting out violent rhetoric. I don't know that she was doing that. I think she was just more milk toast type of Republican politician who's actually conservative, unlike most of the people in the Republican Party at this point. So her ideology was problematic. The policies she pushed for were problematic. Her support of Donald Trump was problematic, but she wasn't an absolute lunatic like MTG. And in the moment, she did the right thing. Now, I always suspected that it was potentially a self-interested thing. Like she had an angle, she thought things were collapsing. Actually, ironically, what I think MTG is doing, and she wanted to set herself up to be, so the party's gone crazy and things are going bad. It's all going to collapse. There is a demand for a right-wing representation. I could be the one spearheading the return to, sanity for the Republican Party. So when this crazy faction dies out, I'll be the one who did the right thing and whatever, and I'll get embraced by the normies and whatever. I always suspected that was something she was doing, but even if that was, I think what she did was commendable. MTG, on the other hand, I don't see any change in behavior. I see MTG being the same person she's always been, an opportunist going where the wind is blowing. Um, you know, I don't know, man. If I have to explain this to you, I don't know. I don't think it's worthy. I don't think it's effective use of my time. But there's a difference between someone who's a fraud and a liar and a scammer who just says whatever, you know, flipping on their ideology or whatever it is, the way MTG is doing. That's different from someone who, doesn't have all that baggage in terms of being a corrupt, uh, this piece of trash. Someone who just has different ideology. I disagree with it. Um, you know, things going too far and then her saying, okay, this is too far, whatever, like the way other Republicans did, but actually meaning it and sticking to her guns on it. Um, and the other thing you have to do when you contrast these two people is MTG had a pretty big following. And we've seen, like, look at Tucker Carlson, got kicked off of Fox. Is he struggling right now? I mean, he's still one of the major players in the right wing. So someone like an MTG who has the following that she does and the type of following that she does, I mean, the idea of her stepping down from Congress, it's not like people look at, oh well, what's she gonna do now? She's just gonna be a loser. No, have you seen her social media following? Um, Now Liz Cheney, on the hand, she doesn't have that. Like, the idea of her going against the party, that was real risk, right? I could see MTG going against and playing this like I'm an anti-establishment, whatever, and doing a podcast or there's so many options. But for a Liz Cheney, I mean, unless this MAGA movement collapses completely and things go back to like normal, then I could see her jumping in. But I mean, that's a long game, and it's just not as sexy as like MTG. Because again, MTG has the independence of, like, she doesn't even need to be in politics. Like, she can just do a podcast, right? I'm sure there's tons of people that would watch her stuff, right? So I look at her more as a potential influencer. I don't. Liz Cheney doesn't have that, right? To me, all she has is politics. So her going against her party, going against the Republican Party leadership, um, that to me is far more dangerous than anything MTG has done. I mean, case in point, Liz Cheney did her thing, and now have you heard anything from her? Have you seen her? Right? Meanwhile, MTG, she's all over CNN, she's here, she's there, she's all over the place, right? Now you might say that there was a time when Liz Cheney was doing that stuff, but I mean, I guess, but I think that was more connected to the 9/11, the January 6th commission or whatever they were called. Like, that thing was a big story, and she was part of that process. So of course she was in the news. But once that was over, it's kind of like, right? MTG, why is she still in the news, right? She is the main character, right? She's not in the news because of X or because of Y. Like, she is basically this right-wing extremist influencer. So she doesn't need to be in politics to make a lot of money and get a lot of attention and, have a social media career or a podcasting career. So it's just not the same level in any way what she did versus, what Liz Cheney did. But anyway, like I said, I mean, I think if I had to explain most of the stuff that I said in this video, I'm probably wasting my time, like I do with most of my videos, unfortunately. But all I can do is tell people the truth, right? That's my part to play. Uh, People can choose to accept the reality, or they can choose to stay in their bubbles, stay in their tribes. I mean, that's certainly gonna make you feel more comfortable. Listening to me and accepting reality is it's cold, right? The truth and reality, it's cold. It can be very lonely. It's not for everyone, right? Just like this channel is not for everyone. Um, this video is not for everyone, but like I said, I put it out there for those who will listen and are willing to, rethink some things and evaluate their positions. But an overwhelming majority of you are not that, unfortunately.